you.
Glory to you, Lord Christ.
Jesus said, beware of practicing your piety before others in order to be seen by them. For then you have no reward from your Father in heaven. So whenever you give alms, do not sound a trumpet before you, as the hypocrites do in the synagogues and in the streets, so that they may be praised by others. Truly I tell you, they have received their reward. But when you give alms, do not let your left hand know what your right hand is doing, so that your alms may be done in secret, and your Father, who sees in secret, will reward you. And whenever you pray, do not be like the hypocrites, for they love to stand and pray in the synagogues and at the street corners, so that they may be seen by others. Truly I tell you, they have received their reward. But whenever you pray, go into your room and shut the door, and pray to your Father who is in secret, and your Father who sees in secret will reward you. And whenever you fast, do not look dismal like the hypocrites, for they disfigure their faces so that as to show others that they are fasting. Truly I tell you, they have received their reward. But when you fast, put oil on your head and wash your face, so that your fasting may be seen not by others, but by your Father who is in secret. And your Father who sees in secret will reward you. Do not store up for yourself treasures on earth, where moth and rust consume, and where thieves break in and steal. But store up for yourself treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust consume, and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Christ.
Lord God, be in our hearts and minds. Help us to hear your words this evening so that we might know and hear and learn from your call. Let it be your voice that is heard, whether it is spoken or whether it is written on our hearts and our minds. Always help us to know it is you. In the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit.
Amen.
Please be seated. You probably wondered why I did that up here. And that's because somebody told me the lights need to be dimmed out there, and I couldn't see if I took it out here. So, I'm just going to tell it right up front. That's why I stay so far away. I find Lent is such an interesting time, but also Ash Wednesday is a very interesting time for me as we begin this time of really renewal, a time of when we're supposed to do self-examination and think about who we are as people, who we are in what some might say in a burial service, who we are in the dash. How does our life fill in that dash? Because that's what we're really being reminded of this evening. You will come forward and you will hear and see the sign of the cross made in ash. And I will say to you, of dust you came and to dust you shall return. Now, I have to tell you a little secret, and some of you who have been an Episcopalian a long time, remember when it was, remember old man, from dust you came, to dust you shall return. And I always thought that was a weird thing to say. I was little. I was not old. But it was a way to remind us, even as children, that life really happens fast. We look back, and what I hope we see is that we've lived a life that filled in this dash in such a way that others see the glory of God. That we have moved ourselves when we were in sort of a wrong place or a wrong path and looked for a new path. We're supposed to store up treasures not here on earth, but oftentimes we end up working so hard to have all those things we want instead of the things that we really need. Because what we really need is each other. What we really need is to show love in a way that we find purpose. How many of you have heard at the end of our life, all that money in the bank is going to be right there in the bank because it's not going in the grave with you? That's part of what we're thinking about during Lent. What is it that we are to do that is going to mean something? Because we came from the dirt of this earth and we're going to go back to the dirt of this earth. There's not one person, well, a few, a long time ago, that left this earth whole. Seems like there was a couple. One went up by chariot. Somebody says Mary did that. But anyway, there's not many of us, and I can probably assure you that most of us are not going to end up there. And you can build the best vault and plant you in this vault, and you're still going to go back to the earth. And so, what I hope we will think about tonight as we think about these ashes and as we think about who we are, what have we done? What have we done to follow this path that Christ has called us to? Most of you may know that Lent is a time where we remember that Jesus spent their time in the desert. This 40 days of being tempted. I believe tempted truly as a human. Where the part of Jesus that was God was not assisting him. He truly wanted to go through this in a way that he could understand what we go through day to day. He wanted to really feel who we were. Because the only way he could know who we were is by living like us. And so he sort of gives up this God part of himself and says, I want to understand you. I love you so much. I want to be as close to what you are. Feel what you feel. Because when I call you to do and to live through temptation and to not be tempted and succumb to it, I want to be able to say, I did it just as you do it. Now, that's a difficult call for most of us. We sort of like our stuff, right? Even if it's not much stuff, even if it's old stuff, maybe it's even rotten stuff, but it's our stuff and we don't want to give it up. But we're supposed to. We are supposed to not hang on to these things that are here on this earth because they will go away. We're supposed to make a difference in people's lives. We're supposed to show love in a way that when we leave, we have left something important. The important thing we've left is how we love someone. How we've shown the light of Christ to someone. How we've given people another way to live in hope and love and cherish these relationships with each other. Not because we're in relationship with each other, but because Christ dwells in us, and that relationship between us and our God and you and your God all come together and make a purpose. It's a way that Jesus went through these temptations. If you look at the temptation, it's about whether or not we want to take on this mortal stuff, store these treasures here, or do we want to have treasures in heaven? Jesus was given the offer of, you can have all of this, and you never have to go there. And Jesus said, having all of this is already mine. But having all of this without those that I created and love is for naught. Think about that. Jesus could have walked the path and took the temptation and said, I would rather have this without the cross than to have this later with the cross. But then he couldn't have had all of us. We would not be the people we are. The greatest temptations, I think, in life are how we make ourselves, give ourselves pleasure or give ourselves some sort of wealth. And Jesus was offered all those things. He said, it's not worth it. Now, I don't think Jesus would say we don't need anything. Of course we need funds to eat and to drink, and we need some sort of housing, although some people live just fine without it. I get it. I don't want to be one of those. I'm sorry. I want just a little bit of the comforts. But even then, I think it's how we work to achieve it. Is it about the treasure that we're building up? Or is it about caring for each other? Is it about caring for ourselves so that we can do more? What is the reason that these treasures that we have, we hold on to? Is it about how we love each other? Or is it really about, I want it all, it's all mine, and you can't have it? Jesus continued to tell us we are to care for each other. We are to love each other. We are to feed each other. We are to clothe each other. We are to stand together and make sure we are whole people. Now, we can't do that alone. Any of us that think we can, we need to have a talk. We can only do that together and with God working through us. Jesus did what Jesus did because of us. Jesus was able to do it because of God dwelling in him, even though he didn't use it as a crutch to get past the temptations. Sure, God was with him, and God was with each of us. And so I hope as we examine our lives as we go through this time of Lent, that we don't just think about what we're going to deny ourselves of. I think sometimes we get trapped into that, and that's sort of the easy thing. Oh, I'll give up chocolate. But I can have it on Sunday. Oh, I won't have anything to drink during the week. But I can have it on Sunday, and boy, I'm going to make up for it. I want us to think about what we can do to let Christ shine through us that will give somebody something, that will spark this little tiny light in them, which makes a light in us shine brighter. Not because we want people to see us, but because we want people to see our Creator in us. That's what I hope that this Lent will do for us. We examine ourselves so that in everything we do, we're pointing back to God and saying, I want you to see God in me. I want you to see the hope and the love that God has for you because you reflect the love that God has in me. That's what Lent is really about. It's about self-examination so that we might be better. We might do more. That we might reach out further. That's what Lent's about. It's not just about depriving ourselves for the sake of depriving ourselves. Jesus didn't go out in the desert and not eat and not drink and not take any of the temptations because Jesus was doing it for himself. Jesus did all those things to be a witness to us and to show us how we should live. A life that gives rather than always receiving. And I say always because I don't know if we as human beings can ever live a life where we don't receive in some way. I almost think that in receiving sometimes that's a gift to someone else. So don't always look at receiving as a negative because that receiving can build someone else up. So give as you can and receive so that others may be able to give too. But leave this place examining what you do in your daily lives that reflect what we say we believe, that truly shows in what we say in word and action. Words mean nothing without action. Jesus spoke the word and lived out in action all of his life. That's what I think Lent calls us to do. So go out, examine yourself, and live a holy Lent. And at the end of this journey of 40 days, when we stop to celebrate the resurrection, there will be a resurrection, not just a celebration that remembers Christ's resurrection, but a resurrection of us as new people in Christ, so that others might see that light that shines through Jesus shining through us. Amen.